Let's go over to Mike Seidel, who is in the Biloxi area. And Mike, what have you noticed in terms of the wind? Have they calmed down? Have they changed direction? Talk to me.
Jim, the wind is almost dead calm. We are in what would be considered the eye, but certainly the center of the circulation. The wind may be a mile or 2 miles per hour. We're back out on Highway 90. We want to show you the aftermath of Hurricane Nate. Well, we still have the surge up. Want to look over here, and you can see this is the eastbound lane here. This is underwater. We look under the Snapper's Seafood Restaurant, and that is the Gulf of Mexico still moving under Snapper's Seafood Restaurant through there. You can see that over there, the waves crashing. So we still have to get the water out. And then we look back towards 90, and you can still see the surge up here on the highway. Now, where we are on the westbound lanes, and look at all the debris out here. It's a lot of seaweed, just a lot of trash, a pretty quick cleanup. Buildings are in great shape, no damage. Holiday Inn, none of the buildings look like they're in bad shape at all, although we did have wind gusts up to 70 miles an hour. We've had about 4.5 inches of rain. Now just a few light raindrops, and based on what we're seeing on the radar, Jim, we are pretty much done with the rain. We're done with the wind, although the winds will get a bit of a backside wind surge, so to speak, and we'll have southwest winds probably picking up about 15, 20, maybe 25 miles an hour later tonight and on Sunday. But, Jim, we're definitely in the calm of Nate. Dr. Nab, we expected this to happen, so they haven't officially made the call at NHC for a second landfall. Is that what I'm hearing from Jim?
Yeah, not quite yet, but it is darn close to making landfall. I'm looking at all the radar data, both the reflectivities and the velocities, and it looks like it is just about on shore. And, Mike, it's possible that when the Hurricane Center looks at all the data and tries to fix where the exact wind center is, it might be right over your head and handle. So, Mike Seidel, you are, as we said, the hurricane magnet tonight. The center circulation right over you.
I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I can tell you, though, personally, it was 18 years ago that I went through the eye of Hurricane Floyd. Now, that was a weakening Cat 3 to a Cat 2, and we actually, it was a more of an eye in a truer sense because we saw the skies break and we saw the birds flying around and the temperature went up. But certainly here, not too shabby because we had wind gusts to 70 miles an hour at nearby Keesler Air Force Base, and moments later the wind just dropped off. And right now you can see there's nothing really moving. We've got probably 4 or 5 mile an hour winds, but the memory lingers. We still have the Gulf of Mexico is still running higher than average. What you're seeing here, this water right now is running down. It looks like it's trying to run back out. It will definitely be out by sunrise. This is the eastbound lane of Highway 90, what they call here in Biloxi Beach Boulevard. And we'll come down here, Mike Narissi, and as far as the eye can see, the eastbound lanes are underwater. In fact, in the distance about another, I don't know, 0.2 of a mile, you can see waves going across Highway 90. And we talked to Mississippi DOT folks earlier on Saturday, and they expected this, and even the emergency management people knew that there were certain spots that even with a surge of 4 or 5 feet would flood, there would be overwash. So what's going to happen, this water is going to back out, and then they're going to have to bring in the front end loaders to kind of scrape up the sand and all this debris. I mean, there's debris, look at this, there's debris everywhere, all from this overwash, but there's no structural damage, nothing significant despite the wind. We're looking pretty good, and the power is on right here. Let's go to Pensacola and see how they're faring. Still some rain over there on the far eastern side of the circulation. Check in with Weather Channel meteorologist Chris Bruin. Chris, good morning.
4.5. All right, the eye guy tonight, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mike Seidel. He's been now noted eye guy tonight. Mike, what are you seeing in terms of how long are you lasting in that eye with the calm winds?
Well, the wind is still very, very light, but it is now light westerly, Jim. That's the key. Instead of blowing down 90 in this direction, it's now coming this way. But It's steady at about maybe 2 or 3 miles an hour. What I want to show you here, in the middle of Highway 90, this is the eastbound lanes. This is Beach Boulevard. That's what they call it here in Biloxi. This is a giant dumpster, and it was picked up and floated here by the surge. When we came down here about 20 minutes ago, we couldn't even walk on this side of the street, this side of Highway 90, the eastbound lanes, because the water was too deep. Look at it now. Now the dumpster's sitting on asphalt. So the water is backing off remarkably fast. I've seen this before. We look down 90 towards Biloxi, towards the downtown area, the Beau Rivage, Hard Rock, a couple miles away, and that's still all underwater, but it's receding nicely. As it recedes, you see what we have in the background. A lot of just debris, seaweed from the Gulf of Mexico. There's some trash. A pretty easy cleanup by far. This is where the water came in. Then as you look farther to the east, down towards the Star Inn and the Waffle House, there's no debris at all. So it's really a function of where the water came in front of where we're staying at the South Beach. There's no debris at all on the roadway or on the grass. So where the surge came in, it deposited all of this, and they'll clean that up here in the morning, and certainly they'll have to get this out of the way before traffic resumes. Let's go to Chris Bruin. Chris, certainly not as a negative situation over there in the Pensacola area in the Panhandle as far as surge, but you are still getting the wind and the rain despite how far you are away from the center landfall, which I think you're about 100 miles off to our east.
Well over 100 miles away from the center. Of course, the storm surge there, impressive, especially since we're not seeing nearly that type of surge. But what's the latest? I know the winds have calmed down, but has the surge retreated any?
Chris, this water is backing off. In fact, about a half an hour ago, this whole roadway here, this is the eastbound lanes of Highway 90 Beach Boulevard. It's now not underwater, but you can see all the debris, and then you get out into the intersection. We've got water here, and then as far as the eye can see, the eastbound lanes are underwater, and we can go a few miles in that direction back towards town, and this is the intersection of US 90 and I-110. You can see from the traffic camera it is underwater. That's near the Beau Rivage, but the water is receding, and certainly by morning, by sunrise, all this water will be back into the Gulf of Mexico. But what's left behind is debris. We've got this dumpster that floated out into the middle of Beach Boulevard, and anywhere where the surge came in, it has retreated and left behind sand and seaweed and trash, and there's some debris. There's some pieces of lumber and some plastic and paper, but other than that, this is going to be a pretty quick cleanup. And then you look up this way past where we're staying, and you get past where the surge did not cross the highway, and the road is clean and green. Hard to believe on Friday night this whole area was gridlocked with all the cruising the coast participants, all the antique classic cars and thousands of people in town. Everybody got out of town. If they didn't get out of town late Friday, they left on Saturday. And so everybody that's here is basically a local, and that's a good thing. We have a few mandatory evacuations, low-lying areas. There is a curfew until 9 a.m. this morning. The casino's closed at 5 p.m. on Saturday. No doubt they'll get those reopened, and everything will be back to business as usual. Haven't checked the power outages, but I can tell you right now, as far as the eye can see, back inland, everything is on. Everything is on, and that's a very promising thing. Let's go now back to, where are we going? Back to, let's go back to Nick Walker. Nick. Yeah. Back in the studio. Nick, I can tell you that after we took the eye, or the center of the circulation, the winds went calm, and now we're on the back side, and we're getting a west to southwest wind, not nearly as strong as we took with that northeastern part of the eye wall. These winds running now about 15 to 20 miles an hour from the other direction, though. And that's what we're going to have all day Sunday, Nick, our southwest winds at about 15 to 20 miles an hour with a few higher gusts as the sunshine returns.
That will be nice. Thanks so much, Mike Seidel. Hey,
for many others. Mike, what's the latest there in Biloxi?
Well, Chris, I can tell you here in Biloxi, although we took the center of the storm, the eye, the winds have now come back to the other direction from the west and southwest. The surge is all backed out. This boardwalk, the water was waves were crashing over this boardwalk, and this whole beach area was underwater. Now we can see the volleyball net in the distance. We still got some pretty decent wave heights out there in the Gulf, but a big turnaround so far, and we are pretty much done with the rainfall. It's now just a matter of cleaning up the debris that was washed in by that angry Gulf of Mexico. Continuing coverage with Hurricane Nate. We'll check back in with Jim Cantori next.
Of tornadoes. Right now, we want to head back over toward Biloxi, Mississippi. That's where Mike Seidel is standing by. And Mike, of course, you had center circulation move right by. It looks like the wind's still rather weak where you are.
Well, the wind has picked up now from the other direction. They were east all day and all night. And then we had the landfall here in Biloxi, the second landfall of Nate at 12:30. So about an hour and 15 minutes ago. And the winds went virtually calm. And now they're coming back from the west and southwest. And we're getting some gusts upwards of 25 to 30 miles an hour. We've got a mist in the air. But I want to tell you, this entire parking lot here, we had waves breaking into the parking lot an hour and a half or so ago. An hour and a half ago, we had the Gulf of Mexico in this lot, and the water went all the way out to US 90 Beach Boulevard. So now look what we have 90 minutes later. We have nothing. All this water now is returned to the Gulf of Mexico. Walk over here, and this is the beach. This was all underwater, and I think you may be able to see in the distance, we still have some pretty decent wave heights of 3 to 4 footers, but the water is basically returned to where it was at lunchtime today. Now, the only thing we have, we noticed even 15 minutes ago, there's still some water on US 90 eastbound from here going back towards the Beau Rivage. What they're going to have to do in the morning is Minnesota DOT, I'm sorry, Minnesota, thinking of winter. Mississippi DOT is going to get up and assess what they have to do as far as damage. There's really no structural damage. It's just debris that floated in with the surge, the storm surge. So they're going to have to get the front end loader and come down 90 in the areas where it did flood and clean up the debris, the sand. There's a few pieces of lumber, but by and large, not a big deal. And the power is still on here. 4.5 inches of rain. We're pretty much done with that. And Keesler clocked in wind gust of 70 miles an hour, just below hurricane force. Nick Walker, again, as the cliche, it could have been a lot worse. Not too bad here as far as we know. And by the way, as far as we've been able to add up, 2,500 customers in this area without power. That's a very small number considering what we've seen in past situations with hurricanes here and even in Georgia with Irma. The next day we had thousands without power.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And
coastal areas farther to the southwest over to around Biloxi, Mississippi. That is where Mike Seidel has been today, and he had just reported a second ago. And Mike, you're telling me now that the winds are picking up from the southwest. It doesn't look like there's going to be too much more in the way of rain, though.
No, but look behind me. We've got the vibrating stop sign. Look at that. I don't know why I find that amusing at almost, 2 a.m. in the morning here in Biloxi, but now the wind is coming from the other direction. We still have a little bit of rain. It's more like a mist, nothing like we had earlier. In fact, I want to take you back to about 2 hours ago, and I shot this video from the same location. You'll see the same stop sign, but look at the intensity of the rain, and the wind was much stronger. This is when nearby Keesler Air Force Base clocked in winds of 70 miles an hour. They ended up, last check, about 4.5 inches of rain. That's what we expected. We went 3 to 5 here, so we did a pretty good job on that forecast. And we had some localized flash flooding. Really, the only flooding we've seen is surge flooding. Now, some of that has come over Highway 90, Beach Boulevard, but out in front of our hotel, if you've been watching the past hour or so, you noticed how much debris we had just down the street, about a block or so. But out front here, everything is clean and green. There's no debris at all because the surge did not get that far north across Highway 90 here. Power's on, never even flickered. And as far as power inland, I mean, I'm looking as far as the eye can see, and everything is lit up. So we're looking pretty good. And no, I don't see any structural damage. Nothing Nothing at all. Let's go back to Jim Cantori. Jim, it's been quite an evening here. We've had a pretty significant surge, 4.5 inches of rain. The surge has now backed out. I mean, it's basically all back into the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
So in about an hour's time, it's all returned to where it came from, and now the wind is rather frisky from the southwest, west-southwest, ever gusting probably about 30 miles an hour. So we did pretty well here. Power's on and no significant damage. It's just going to be a matter of mopping up and getting the front-end loaders to go down Highway 90 in these streets to clean up what came in with a surge.
East of Pensacola Beach. Mike Seidel, are you still with me?
Yes, I am, and I just got an update on power outages here in Harrison County, and 10,000 customers without power, but they're basically all inland, and that is because of the foliage and the trees. Here on the beach, and what, as far as I can see, now we've got trees over here, but the power's on, but you get farther inland, you got more uprooted trees on power lines, and kaboom. The power here on Beach Boulevard is buried. They did that, buried it. They did that after Katrina. So that helps out in a big way, Jim. And by the way, Jim, I wanted to ask you, refresh my memory, what was the top number on the surge, that you heard of from Pascagoula? Because we you thought that was going to be the top number on the Mississippi Gulf Coast.
Well, I looked at the gauge, and it said it was up around 8 feet. But I got the gentleman I've been talking to, the Weather Service, was saying, you know, that may or may not be, you know, something that we want to say, okay, that's exactly what it was. So I'm going to say anywhere from 7, Mike, to 9 feet, because that's where the gauge was in Pascagoula. Now, I'm going to let them verify that, because there was some question as to the validity of that or not. But either way, we talked to Earl, and he was telling us how we've got homes that have been taking on water. We have some slight structural damage. That, of course, is from the wind and not the surge component. Even here in some of these bays, these back bays, away from the beaches, we are getting water that is getting into and eerily close to homes. We'll be right back.
I'm meteorologist Mike Seidel, Biloxi, Mississippi. Good morning. It's Sunday morning. Nate has moved in and moved out. As far as the major impacts, we've had about 4.5 inches of rain nearby Keesler Air Force Base, home of the hurricane hunters, with wind gusts to 70 miles an hour. And we had a pretty decent storm surge, around 3.5 to 4 feet, and that crossed and closed down US 90. Now the water has all receded for the most part, but the problem is there's some debris in the roadway. So MDOT is going to have to come in here at first light and assess what they need to do. They've got front-end loaders, have the equipment ready to go down the highway and scrape up the debris, seaweed, some trash, and some sand. But look at the wind right now in these palm trees. That's from the other direction. That's a west-southwest wind rattling the windows, still pretty much gusting 30, 35 miles an hour. Not as strong as we took on the front end. And this is what it looked like on the front end as the northern and northeastern eye wall came through here. This is basically where I'm standing right now. Shot this video looking across Beach Boulevard, US 90. Look at that wind howling and the rain blowing horizontally. And this is when we had those gusts between 60 and 70 miles an hour. The power is on here. There are some power outages here in Jefferson County. In fact, we just updated 8,400 there. We believe the other 1,600 are in nearby Hancock County. So not a lot of folks have lost power, but some did. By and large, we're looking pretty good here on the beachfront. I don't see any structural damage at all. Everything seems to be mostly intact. It's just a matter of getting out the brooms and the rakes and the bulldozers and scraping up what rolled in with that surge from the Gulf of Mexico from Hurricane Nate. By the way, curfew continues till 9 a.m. The casinos, no doubt, will reopen as soon as possible on later today, Sunday. They closed at 5, and I think it'll be business as usual, certainly for the restaurants and the hotels as we get into Sunday afternoon, and also as we get into Monday. Let's head east now to Orange Beach, Alabama. Jim Cantori over there. Jim, your rain is beginning to back off, and I assume the worst is over for you over there too.